Hey folks, today I'm going to be talking about some of the quality of life changes that will be coming in 1.0. EHG has blessed us with this quality of life blog post that has a lot of really cool stuff, so stay tuned and we will dig into that. Leave a like on the video if you enjoyed this sort of thing, if you find it helpful, and I will continue making more content like this. Anyway, let's jump into it. So we have some really big mechanical changes to the game. One of the first ones is that blessings will now be swappable. So you can see here with the little UI preview, you are able to select blessings that you've previously unlocked by fighting the boss. So what that basically means is when you kill the boss, you see the selection of blessings to choose from. All of those blessings will go into this sort of codex of blessings, and then you can then go back to the NPC in End of Time and select one of those ones that you previously unlocked. This also works for your alts. So any character that shares a stash, as long as you've unlocked a blessing, you can then immediately use that blessing after beating the boss that unlocks it with any of your alt characters. So it will be the minimum rolled. So you can see here, minimum rolled version earned on your other character. So that's really cool. That means that for people who like to make a bunch of different characters, you'll be able to get them up to a reasonable power level very fast. You just do the timeline once, and then you can pick the lowest roll of whatever you want. Really, really cool stuff. It also means that if you are the type of person to really min-max and you have a high roll blessing, you can swap to a different blessing to try it out, and then swap back if you don't like it or if you want to try a different build. This should help, as they say here, encourage experimentation with different builds. Really love this change. Absolutely massive quality of life. Really a home run from EHG here. So there's some details on that here. Feel free to pause if you want to read exactly what it is, but kind of what I just explained. So there's some ladder improvements here. I know a lot of you are probably not going to be interested in that, but we'll just quickly skim through. So there's also a level-based ladder. So you'll see that in some of the other games. I believe PoE has something like this. So it shows the level 100 characters and also when they reached level 100, so that's pretty cool. One thing I think would be kind of cool is if it showed your actual total experience. So once you reach level 100, if you're not aware, the experience continues counting. It'd be really cool if you could see like what player has the most total experience ever or something like that. I do think that the times make sense of whoever does it first as the priority ranking, but it would be cool to see that too. Yeah, so a lot of really cool stuff. We have the arena. So there's timestamps to arena ladder, show when the player earned their rank. So really cool. Another quality of life, we have the monolith timeline search. So this is another really cool one. You can see there's some icons here you can click if you want to target a specific reward. This will be useful for COF because you probably are going to be wanting to target the XP tomes for your favor, assuming they don't change how that works. And then otherwise, there may be modifiers you're looking at. I'm not exactly sure what the search will be. It says common reward, filter and search desired echo types and rewards. So maybe if you're looking to target a specific map, assuming like, for example, the Exiled Mage farm with Lakeside Trail is still in the game. I don't know if that is the case, but if so, you might be able to search that here and find those echoes more easily. This is really nice. Lootfilter improvements. So this is a really, really big one. So you'll now be able to add multi-affix conditions to a single rule. This is really big. For those of you who don't know, the maximum number of rules you can have is 75. So people who have very complex loot filters can run out of room, or also if you're trying to make filters with different affixes or different things, you have to make a bunch of duplicate rules and then you change them and it only changes one. It's kind of a pain. So this allowing multi-affix conditions is a really, really big deal. That's a huge quality of life to building out your loot filters, and there's a lot of really great stuff. We'll be able to do that. You will also have the option to show the relevant filter number. That's pretty cool. And you can hide, show or hide affixes that are incompatible. So for those of you who've made your own filters, you know that the list of affixes is huge. There is hundreds of affixes. This is really nice. If you're filtering boots, you won't see those affixes anymore that don't roll on boots. Very nice. You'll be able to build your filters much quicker. And then the biggest one, the huge, giant change to loot filters is you can now filter Legendary Potential and Weaver's Will. I like this a lot. There's one very large problem still with the LP filter, assuming they haven't made more changes, and that is that you can't currently filter by a specific unique item. You can only filter by the base type and the level requirement. So one of the issues is if there's like, say, a set of 10 or 12 uniques that you're interested in, and you only want to see them with 2LP, you can't just say 2LP and then select those uniques. You have to select the base type for each one by one, and say 2LP of this base type. And sometimes base types are actually shared, so you can't explicitly define one unique. You can't differentiate. In those cases, it's kind of a pain. And even not in those cases, you end up with a very large number of rules. And as I said, 75 rule limit means you're very limited. So I hope in the future, similar to how you can select affixes from a dropdown with checkboxes, I hope we will have the same thing for unique items, where you can select all the unique items and say, for these unique items, I want to see 2LP or highlight 3LP and so on. Right off the bat, though, this will allow you to highlight, for example, 3 and 4 LPs. So those items you never need to worry about missing anymore, which I think is absolutely massive, especially endgame min-maxing. I personally know a lot of people who just stop looking at uniques anymore, and this will allow them to make sure they don't actually miss anything that could be potentially valuable, even for a different build or something. So yeah, item faction changes. I just made a video on my thoughts on the COF changes and these changes in general. I'll link that in the description. So I won't go super deep into it this time. We'll quickly just high level it. So basically, there are 2 more ranks to each faction. However, the leveling speed is increased so that you should achieve the new rank 12 a little bit faster than it used to get you to rank 10. This is a huge buff to the increasing speed that you level, and also you're going to get more breakpoints along the way where you get improvements to your item faction. Really, really big change. Love it. Another thing that's also very huge is you get plus 5% favor gain per rank. Previously, the only way to scale the favor gain was corruption. So coming with this change, they've also nerfed the amount of favor scaling from corruption. So what that means is that early on, you will be getting significantly more favor. And then for the people who do push extremely high amounts of corruption, which is, if you're not sure what that means, it's probably not you. So I would just take a guess and say 1,000 plus corruption. These people are going to be getting less favor. So overall, this is a huge buff for the vast majority of players. This is very good. So Merchant Guild. I've mostly played COF. Actually, I've exclusively played COF so far. So I won't dig too deep into Merchant Guild changes. However, it looks like they have broken down the ranks a little bit more. They've separated things so that you get a lot more reasonable breakpoints as you go on. Previously, a lot of the really useful things were quite late into the ranks for Merchant Guild. Now they're more spread out. So yeah, that means that you'll be getting a lot more noticeable improvements to your item acquisition throughout your gameplay. This is very nice. Then COF, as I said, I already made a video on this explicitly. I'll put in the description, but I will skim over very quickly. Most of the ranks are unchanged. You can see the ones here that are slightly bold or changed. Set items, the buff you will now get much sooner, usually. In 1.0, you get it very late, so that wasn't useful, because by then you don't need set items anymore. Now you get them earlier. This is really good. Some of the other stuff has moved around. The other big thing is that you're going to be getting mages drop twice as many experimental items. It's a huge buff to finding very specific items for specific builds, and it should also apply to like Mad Alchemist Ladle and all that stuff, if that's what you're looking for. Then we have bosses have drop rate. I've already talked about this a bit before, but basically what that means is if boss has a 10% chance to drop something before, now it will be 25%. It's really good. We don't know exactly how that will work with items that already have a high chance to drop. So say something's 80%. Can they drop more than one? I don't know. Hopefully. And then it also says here, bosses apply to all unique enemies that have a health bar. So that is stuff like Exiled Mage. So rank 7 plus the rank 10, you're going to be getting a lot of drops from Exiled Mages. Really cool. Actually, never mind. This says only unique. Unique enemies. Yeah, what I said is true. I didn't lie to you. So yeah, you'll be getting a lot of stuff from the mages. Really cool. And then we have, instead of items being duplicated from prophecies, they are now going to be granting twice as many rewards. This is actually a buff. I talked about why in my previous video, so check that out. But this is actually a good thing. Then we have Gaze of Orbis changes. So corruption, we'll skim through this really quickly. Previously, your gaze had diminishing return. So if you didn't know, your first gaze would give a pretty big amount of corruption, and then it would very quickly drop off. So by the time you're at like 3 or 4 stacks of Gaze of Orbis, I think it was like maybe +3 or +4 corruption or something like that, and just scaling down from there, very, very heavily diminishing. Now that's not the case. However, it only stacks up to 4. And then there's also some new items and mechanics that you'll be able to get the gaze stacks more quickly. And there's also the new corruption-based faction, the timeline faction, that you will be able to get more corruption per stack and all sorts of other buffs to this. So in general, you will be able to get corruption significantly quicker. And along with some other changes that they've also added, you will be able to get your alts up to speed much quicker too. So that's very, very good stuff. I like this a lot. What else? You will only lose 1 stack of gaze when you die to shade. So that's good. Previously, you'd lose all of them. And then there's also some party stuff. What does it say here? All players in party who have the required stability will also gain a stack of gaze. Okay, so then they can go back to their own timeline, kill gaze. That's really good. The only problem is by the time you get to the shade in your given echo web, you've probably already fought the boss a few times. So you've already got your stacks. It's a little bit weird with somehow this stuff balances around. Maybe there'll be incentive for you to go for the closer shades and not push out to the further ones. It really depends on how that works. So anyway, we have some class changes. Some passive stuff. What else? We have channeling skill. This is really cool. So previously, when you're channeling, your mana regen is 0. You don't regen anything. Now you have mana regen, but it adds a extra flat cost to all the channeled skills. So if you have a bunch of mana regen, you will actually slowly regenerate mana while channeling. This is really cool. It means that mana regen actually does something, whereas before it didn't. There will be a lot of really weird interactions with this, I'm sure. I'm a little bit concerned with how many mechanics are being changed in this, that there might end up being some weird bugs or interactions that haven't been thought about. There are quite a few channeling skills, like you have Warpath, you have the Disintegrate shown here, and pretty much every class, as far as I know, has a few of their own. Yeah, so there's a lot of stuff going on. And with Mage and having all their weird mana stuff, maybe there's going to be some cool things that you can do now that you couldn't before. So skill changes. Disintegrate has been something that they're trying to revitalize, make useful. There's been a lot of previews of Disintegrate, a lot of buffs. So we have a bunch of extra base damage. They are nerfing the interaction between Gambler's Fallacies and Ignivar's Head. So if you didn't know, it gives you a crazy, absurd amount of crit chance, and then Ignivar's Head would allow you to scale that crit chance into damage. That was basically the only way to play it before. They're trying to change that so that it has more viable alternatives, different ways to play. So hopefully Disintegrate will end up being cool. There are ways that you can use Disintegrate now so that you have stacks of Lucomancer, and then you can immediately be at full power Disintegrate. So hopefully the playstyle they're going for is that you can actually run through the map with Disintegrate and just tap the beam onto enemies and trash mobs and kill them. Yeah, so I'm hoping that there's some way to have very high boss damage, and then also scale that so that you have good trash clear too. So we'll see if this turns into some builds. I don't know yet. We also have, what is this? More lightning damage based on your max mana. So there's mana scaling. This is really cool. This is a good way to scale your damage. If you were stacking mana, you could potentially have like 2,000 mana. This would be, what is that? I don't feel like doing math today. That's well over 100%. It's like what? Yeah, well over 100% damage. What else we have here? When you stop channeling, you have Fireball. That's pretty cool. There could be some synergies here. Shield Bash. There's some stuff here for shield bash. Cooldown is increased, but you can recover some of the cooldown when you stun, even from other stuns. So there might be some sort of build where you have a bunch of stun and you recover the shield bash cooldown. I don't know how useful that will be on bosses, because if you're able to apply a lot of stuns to the bosses, then you might not even need shield bash to begin with. So I don't know if this is going to lead to a stun lock capability, but I guess we'll see. Players are creative. They'll probably come up with something crazy with this, I'm sure. We have some more stuff here. What else? This is all shield bash, block effectiveness, damage scaling, attack speed. Cool. So Avalanche, this is a really, really big one. A lot of people have been talking about this potentially being absolutely crazy in 1.1 with some huge damage. So the base functionality has been reworked. It's no longer channeled. It's 50 mana cost. Cool stuff. One large boulder followed by small boulders. So the damage scaling you'll notice right here is 4% per point. Added damage applied at 400% effectiveness each hit. Freeze rate, cool. But then the big thing here, literally, is that the large boulder is 100% more damage. That's basically 800% effectiveness and more AoE. So just the initial hit alone, you're already hitting basically as hard as Meteor, which is a very hard-hitting skill for probably less mana. And then you have a bunch of rain of meteors if they somehow hit. You have crazy, crazy amount of damage scaling. This could be completely absurd. I'm looking forward to builds people come up with this. Yeah, these numbers just seem nuts. We have stun stuff. What else do we have? Some upheaval chance, mana consumption, cool. A lot of really cool stuff. So we have base crit. Chance to drop a small boulder. Oh, wow. So you get even more boulders? Okay, that's kind of crazy. So this would go up to 100% on crit. Yeah, that's a lot of damage. Wow. Okay, I think Avalanche might end up being very strong. Pretty cool stuff. So then we have passives. So Sorcerer, there's a lot of really cool stuff. What else? You have more lightning damage to shocked enemies. Normally you don't get more multipliers in the passive tree. This is pretty cool that you're able to actually get that 5% more damage with 5 points. Skills which cost at least 40 mana inflict a spark charge on hit. Okay, that's pretty cool. I think there might be some sort of synergy you could do that. With this sort of mana cost, you probably aren't going to be able to spam it unless you have some way to recover your mana. So one example would be if you're mana stacking and you have, is it Glacier? I forget the name of the skill, the ice one. You're able to spend a crazy amount of mana, but also you recover pretty much all of it. That would be really cool. I don't know what kind of synergies we'll see, but I'm feeling like there might be some really neat stuff that you'll be able to do with this. I guess this would also apply to Meteor as well. I don't know if that would be a build, but I could see some potential there. That'd be really cool. What else we have? Archmage, spell damage, refund a portion of the mana on use. So this is the mana stacker. I don't think we've seen anything that if you have 1,000 mana, you get a buff. So that's pretty big. Clearly they're going for mana stack here. So this would be 7%, tripled to 21%. And it's 1 of 5, so this would be 100% chance to refund 20% of the mana cost. That's really cool. And the really interesting thing about this refund is that this will also work with the other things that do refunds as well. So if the skill itself already has an innate refund built into it, this will give you an additional bit of refund. So those skills that are just on the edge of being viable with the mana cost, this might push it over the limit where it becomes really cool. So Meteor already has a refund thing, 48%. This would basically take that to 68% over the previous seconds of whatever. And this would be up front too, whereas normally it's over a few seconds. This is actually really cool. Maybe some sort of static orb or something you could do with this. You can recover almost 100% mana with the Lightning Blast tech with static orb. I don't know what people will come up with, but this is going to be really cool. I like it a lot. And then we have ward per second per 10 max mana. So if you have 2000 max mana, this would be 200 word per second. That is quite a lot, plus whatever you get here. This is a very significant amount of word per second. With the ward changes, that might end up being a new way to build ward, or even do like a hybrid build of some sort. If you have a bunch of health and mana, you could just grab this, and then it'll give you a buffer shield to make yourself into a hybrid build. Really cool. Then we have max mana 3 per point. Mana spent gained as ward 50%. That's not actually that much. This is kind of a low amount, but I guess for free, that's not bad. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Then we have area for area skills. Area is very nice, and LE damage. This is pretty good. I like this. Then we have FORGEGUARD. FORGEGUARD has been kind of a meme. So what we have here is some changes to passives. Some of these we've already seen in previous spoilers. Some of them are new. So we have parry chance. I think this is a new one. Strength with 200 weapon, +2 per point. +2 strength is actually pretty big. Normally attribute passives only give 1 per point. So 2 I like. Reduce bonus damage taken from crits with shield. That's pretty cool. So normally I believe Sentinel uses the reduced damage taken helmet, but if they can't, this would be pretty cool. What else do we have? We have some armor shred, minion stuff. We have throwing crit multi. These we've already seen. Then we have Shaman. Chance to cast Maelstrom when hit. Endurance threshold per Maelstrom. That's pretty cool. I don't know. This could be a new way to build a tank. I'm not really sure how useful this is or how many stacks you could reasonably expect to get. If you had like 20 stacks, for example, that'd be 400 endurance threshold. It's not a huge amount if you're stacking health. It's just giving you a flat. If it was like % of your max health as endurance, that'd be something really cool. This, I don't know. Maybe. This could be interesting. Then we have +2 cold. This is good stuff. Shared lightning. You and your minions. So there's some cool minion stuff here. And then you get scaling. Shared lightning pen per 5 attunement. That's pretty cool stuff. So I'm seeing a lot of little buffs to the combo points. Once you put a certain number in, you get some extra stuff. This is really good. Then we have some health regen per attunement. This we've already seen. The totem frenzy could be really cool stuff. So ward balance. This is going to be really interesting. These are the big ward nerfs that have been talked about. Yeah, so they're basically just changing the formula so that the ward decay scales up a little bit slower to start, but then it scales much harder than before. What that basically means is that if you have like 50,000 ward, for example, in 1.1, you're going to be losing ward significantly faster than 1.0. I think this change does make a lot of sense. I'm a little bit concerned with the builds that don't actually rely on ward retention at all. They just have huge bursts of ward. I don't know if this is going to be as big a nerf for those types of builds as is appropriate. But for builds like the Frostclaw or whatever Runemaster builds where you sustain large amounts of ward due to having large ward retention from int stacking, this is going to end up being a pretty large nerf to the amount of ward that you can sustain. I don't know if that's actually that big of a deal. Probably be fine. I think we might be able to zoom in here and see the decay rate. If this is the actual decay rate, you can see here the break even being at about 4,000 ward. Your decay rate will be the same. And then at here we can see 16,000, which is we're going to be decaying about 18,000. I'm thinking that's what per. That can't be per second. So you don't decay that much per second, do you? At 4,000, do you decay almost 2,000 word per second? I don't think so. They did include the formula, but I haven't plugged it in anywhere yet. But you can see that whatever it does end up being at about 16,000, you are decaying 3 times as much ward. So that means that your cap on the amount of ward that you can have is going to be significantly reduced. You probably won't be seeing many people running around with 80,000 plus ward. I say that, but maybe people will find a way to break the game again. That's usually how these things go. So anyway, so here's the formula. You can feel free to plug this in anywhere if you want, and give your character values, like your word retention. For a little bit of context, in 1.0, a very end game Rune Master could expect to have something like 900% word retention. We're talking like extremely end game int stacking, potentially higher with shackles. So you can still get quite a bit of word retention through shackles, but my Frostclaw did have about 900%. Yeah, so that's probably what you're looking at. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the patch notes. I hope you guys found this helpful. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Cheers.